were protesting outside of what's his face's funeral, the poor gay guy that got killed.
Right.
That kind of church, okay? They wanted to get children away from Halloween celebrations and festivals. So they started doing their own fall festivals, which is totally fine. Mm-hmm. Totally fine. I have no problem with that. Having your own thing in your church, you have a fall festival, and you take whatever you think is not. So, sorry, we stopped recording on accident. So we're back again. So they decided to take they're doing their own Halloween. But they're not Halloween, they're called them like fall festivals, which is, like I said, totally appropriate. Totally
love
fine.
Me a good fall festival.
Fall festivals are fun.
I'm all about that.
And if that's what you're doing, I all the power to you. If you want to take,
I want it all. I want all of it.
I do too. But I'm just saying, if your church feels like we're gonna have our own fall party and take the skeletons and the bats and the witches out of it, whatever, that's cool for this. That's what you want to do. But they also started doing
any extra skeletons you might have. I'll take them.
Yeah,
as long as they're not real. I don't want real skeletons. I just want fake plastic ones.
They started doing a thing called hell houses.
What?
Hell houses.
Oh.
Some things that they would have in it are showing homosexuals with AIDS, or teen girls contemplating abortion. The goal was to basically scare the hell out of the kids. So basically telling them if you're gay, you're going to have AIDS and go to hell. So it's showing people in hell that made sinners in hell and how you could become in hell. Totally horrible and awful.
Awful. And I will say, I'm a parent and my oldest child is trans. So, and he's a homosexual ace trans child. So like we're checking a couple of boxes here in the LGBTQ spectrum. So
right.
Like I am like one of those people, if I hear anybody saying things about gay people or trans people, I will come up to your face and tell you to shut up.
Exactly.
But I'm a mama bear. So like some people, they don't understand because they've never had to deal with it themselves, and like, I love my child. I will love my child forever, no matter what, you know what I mean? If your child comes to you and they say, I think I'm supposed to be a boy. Okay.
Because that's how you feel. And I don't know how you feel. So how can I tell you don't? Right. And that blows my mind that people can think. I just don't get how people can say that you can't feel this way. How do you know what someone can feel?
Right. This got real deep real quick, didn't it?
But I mean, the hell houses were absolutely inappropriate and horrible, and they're still happening to this day.
And it makes me feel sick.
Again, this isn't your average Christian church isn't doing this. They're having fall festivals and having fun. They're not doing horrible judgmental
pumpkins
things.
And scarecrows.
Yes.
And
totally not what we're talking about.
Lots of candy corn.
But this really, and then in 19, hold on, where was I? In 70s, I said that. 60s. Oh, in 1982, that's what I'm looking for. Televangelist Pat Robinson called Halloween a satanic ritual. So this is around the time in like the 80s when satanic panic comes into play. Yes. Because let me tell you, that was something else. This, and you know what? You can hear listen to this with like that.
I know.
People still have this mindset today. So at this time, there was a rash of false allegations in the 80s and 90s, and still of satanic ritual abuse, saying that there was a global satanic cult, including wealthy and powerful and the elite, who are abducting children and using them for rituals, sacrifice, breeding other humans, pornography, and prostitution. Now, am I saying there isn't human trafficking? Oh, yes, there is. But it's the conspiracy theory parts that make it so it's actually hurting the cause to stop it when this stuff happens, because this isn't real. You're saying things so people are spending their time and energy looking at things that aren't real instead of saving the people who are actually getting hurt.
Right. I think to say that all that stuff comes from one group of people is totally naive.
Yeah. And to put it,
evil people come from everywhere. Every walk of life, everything. Every religion, every race, everything. All has evil people.
Now,
everywhere. And it's terrible
to think about. Schools, police officers, FBI were searching for this because it became such a huge thing. They were actually spending lots of time. And come to find out, it wasn't happening the way they were saying. Now, am I saying there wasn't some things? Of course, there's things happening all the time everywhere. But they were saying that there were more than tens of thousands of children a year that were being taken away and abducted for these rituals.
By Satanists.
By Satanists. Just Satanists, tens of thousands of people. But on average, in the United States, there were only 200 to 300 children a year missing. So how could you have tens of thousands of children being used if there's not even that many kids missing? Like, it doesn't, they were just, I don't know where they're grasping at these numbers.
They made them up.
And what happens with conspiracy theories is
someone said
they snowball.
And I heard them say it, so it must be true.
Yeah. It's that mindset where you read something and you spread it to your friend who spread it to their friends, the telephone game. And by the time your fifth friend, you said to him, I really like oranges. And 20 people later, they're like, poop stinks. Like that's, it just doesn't make, it's not, that's not what I said. But because he heard that.
It's not untrue.
It's not untrue.
But he didn't say it.
Right. There has been no evidence of the proof of the satanic panic. But and the groups that were saying this happened have taken back the claims of that, but they still are demonizing Halloween, saying that's the night Satanists go out to abduct children. So they took back the whole kidnapping and all that stuff, but they still are saying.
Because, most of these people, like, look at Dennis Rader was a deacon in his church.
Yeah.
He was, I don't think in his heart he was a religious person, but he acted
like one.
He acted like a religious person. He wasn't a Satanist. I mean, he was an evil man. But, like, this is BTK, in case I don't like calling him BTK because he gave himself that name in his church. So, we'll say Dennis Rader because he's nice. But yeah, he went to church. He was a deacon in his church. He was high up in his church. And that's how they found him.
I was just listening to a friend of mine has a podcast called Cruel Tea. And they were just talking about the vampire cult what is the guy's name? He was super religious and he said that Jesus was a vampire. And and like he was like disgusting and awful and did terrible things in the name of Jesus, but it was his own interpretation of it. So just because someone says that they're religious doesn't mean they're good.
Right.
So the whole demonizing of Halloween led to the Halloween sadism scare. So remember when we were a kid and we go trick-or-treating, our parents say we have to check your candy because there's probably a razor blade in it. Or remember we were always scared when you were a kid, like in the 80s, like it was all about there's going to be a hypodermic needle in your candy. Mm-hmm. Or don't get anything that's not prepackaged. Throw out your apples and stuff because there's going to be something in them.
I was fortunate. My grandmother made fresh homemade kettle corn every year for Halloween. So I'd go there and I'd get a whole bag of kettle corn. It was amazing. But
if you went trick-or-treating, you would never be able to eat that because our parents would say there was poison, right?
Poison, yeah.
Well, even during this time in the 80s, like, because we grew up in the 80s and our Halloween was in the 80s and best time ever, but still.
I know, but you know what? Like, your Halloween was different than my Halloween. My Halloween, we only ever went to places, like, when I was like, you knew. Right. So, like, when I got older and you say, oh, look all this candy that I got, I'd be like, man, you must know a lot of people. Because I didn't realize that kids that lived in the city, you just went everywhere. I'm like, you went to people's houses you didn't know? It was it was the thing that blew my mind as a kid.
Well, and because of that, and because we had cable at that time, because TVs, were part of it, it spread the whole scare of razor blades in your freaking candy.
I remember watching the news and saying, "Oh, the hospital's having this thing. Yes! You can take your X-ray, X-rayed."
The next thing I was going to say is hospitals are even X-raying the candy,
which is insane. I mean, it's like the people are more apt to kidnap your child these days than they are to give them a razor blade.
But here's the thing: that wasn't a thing. People weren't putting razor blades in things. It was just like the whole satanic panic. And things led to people thinking bad things were happening, and
they never found any.
They never did. Here. The only thing that has ever been proven with a child getting poisoned was the Candyman story about the dad who poisons his own kids with their pixie sticks. Remember, Morbid did a podcast on it, and it was what was the guy's name? But it was a Candyman, is what they called him. He was the only thing in history of the United States where a child was poisoned by their candy was a dad killing his own children, which is horrible, but it wasn't something that was happening everywhere. The way that with hospitals doing X-rays, you'd think every year there's thousands of kids dying.
And you know what? Even the whole, like, was it toxic Tylenol?
Yeah. It
actually wasn't Tylenol. It was some person killed their husband.
Yes.
and then went into the store, and then
everyone thought Tylenol.
They poisoned bottles of Tylenol and put it back on the shelf.
Yes.
And that's why they have safety seals, which is not a bad thing.
Actually, that was part of my thing too.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay, because some of it comes from the Tylenol. Well, if people will do that to Tylenol, why would they do it to kids' candy? Like, that's what the mindset was. So one of the things I think about, where the fear kind of came from, and there's been research done on the whole, obviously, satanic panic and the Halloween sadism and the accuracy of where it came from. Why did we think this? So in October 28th, 1970, there was an article written in the New York Times that could have started this. There was a quote in the article. It was about Halloween. The right before Halloween, they decided to release this, or why they thought this was a good idea, saying that maybe there's more horror than happiness in Halloween. Maybe the bubblegum will be sprinkled with lye. Maybe an apple from the nice lady down the street will have a razor blade in it. Why would you write that in the thing when you don't know? Maybe. Yeah, maybe, but it didn't happen.
And then someone's going to read that and think it's true.
Yeah. And at the end, there was some kind of conservative psychologist that said, at the end of the article, that basically the morals of society has led to bad things like this happening with the Tylenol and the candy and all that stuff.
That shit's happened since Jack the Ripper.
That shit happened back
cavemen
thousands of years ago. Bad people are bad people.
Yes.
People can be bad regardless of where you come from or what you do.
Percentage-wise, it's probably the same. There's just a hell of a lot more people on Earth right now than there were 300 years ago. So, like, of course there's going to be more bad people because there's more people.
So this is semi-funny. In the 90s, there was 2 Texas ministers that said they were going to exorcise the entire city of San Francisco because of their risque gay Halloween celebrations. They thought they were all possessed. San Francisco was possessed by the gays.
Oh, I need to go.
I can't wait to go then.
I can't.
Sign me up.
Let me go for sure.
Sign me up for that party because you know it's going to be fantastic.
Oh my God, it's going to be fabulous.
But listen, there are people from San Francisco formed a committee called GHOST, which stood for Grand Homosexuals Outraged at Sickening Televangelists. I was like, that's fantastic.
Oh my
How do
God.
I become a part of GHOST? Is that still happening?
Can you be part of that and not be gay?
I know.
I need that in my life.
I know.
Sickening televangelists.
So there, I know, it's sickening.
I just snorted. I'm sorry. Oh man, that's fantastic.
Good stuff. So the church, since the beginning of when they came through the Celtic area of England and Europe, has been trying to demonize Halloween, basically, because the basis of Halloween comes from Samhain. So they've always been trying to, and like I said, the only devil in Halloween was put there by the church.
And you know what's funny too? Like, if you think about it, Halloween is really the only holiday that the pagan customs have overshone the Christian customs.
Yeah.
Because you look, Easter is totally like, I mean, the Easter bunny is the pagan part of Easter, but
and eggs.
The eggs and the baskets. Eggs are totally the pagan part.
Yeah.
That's like a big part of Ostara is like painting eggs
right.
and things. But like Halloween, there's none of the church left there.
No, and the only reason why the church tried to take over it because they wanted them to celebrate the Holy Day the next day. So
right. And people don't.
No, I mean I went to Catholic school, so we celebrated Halloween at school. We'd have our Halloween parade, and we dressed up in whatever we wanted. Back in the 90s, you could bring a knife to school and have a scary mask. Yeah, like no one cared. In the 80s, no one cared.
No.
But the next day, we had to dress as our favorite saint, and we had a parade. So we had Halloween one day, and then we had All Saints Day the next, and we got a parade that went into mass. We had mass.
Who'd you dress up like? Saint Francis. He was my favorite saint. He was the only one I remember.
I've been to Saint Francis. I was Saint Elizabeth. Oh, I don't know. I had a couple of them. I probably was. I don't know because I was there for
How do you dress up like a saint?
Everyone was wearing a sheet over their heads and like a bathrobe. I swear to God, everyone showed up.
I'm a monk
with a bathrobe and a sheet on their head because they're like Mary.
And
everyone was Mary or a monk of some kind. Anyway, that's what you had to do. Someone came as St. Patrick one year, some of my class, and their parents went all out. They had the big thing on his head, and he looks like, yeah.
That's
Which,
pretty funny.
there's a whole story about St. Patrick and what he actually wasn't. We could talk